Hi there. So my friend Phillip and myself are going to do a video on executive functioning.
Yes.
Which is something that I've been meaning to bring up for a long time. And I suppose I haven't done a whole lot of that in particular because I focused on other aspects of what being on the spectrum means to me and kind of shied away from my own challenges, the negative aspects that make my life difficult, to be honest, and that I don't like to talk about that. So, but it's important to talk about. Philip and I both are challenged by executive functioning on a daily basis, and there's several aspects to executive functioning, and executive functioning can be worsened by things like stress, not feeling well, overload, sensory, all that. It's all part of executive functioning, and it goes both ways, where those things can worsen executive functioning and can be caused by executive functioning. So what are some aspects of executive functioning challenges?
Yes, it would be important to understand executive functioning challenges from the perspective of what really constitutes executive functioning, and it's all these sort of cognitive abilities that allow us to regulate executive functioning. Understanding it best would involve sort of parceling out its components. There are components that allow someone to initiate behavior and then stop, so start and stop behavior. Regulation, yeah. Problem solving, it's sort of planning an action, executing it, and verifying it.
Hence executive functioning.
Hence executive functioning.
And then people like us, right, really mask people have a hard time believing that we have challenges with executive functioning, and it's often attributed to our attitudes and our behavior, as though it's intentional, right?
It can be like rule-governed behavior, understanding all aspects of your environment to problem solve, and when it's fragmented, it's a lot harder. For example, I was with Rose today, and we were going to Long and McQuaid to pick up a pick for her guitar, and we got off at the stop before, which was quite a bit farther than we were intending to go, but we got off, and we realized that
it's closed.
And just integrating that rule, using attention or remembering to integrate that rule would have been so valuable. And then again, now I'm downstairs, and I told Rose that I might need these sunglasses for sensory issues, because she tends to wear them a lot while she's down here too. And I forgot that I actually do have a pair of sunglasses in my jacket, which would have worked. So it's sort of like taking all these
and it's not
together.
Necessarily a memory problem. It's because, I was with both my kids, and they both have behavioral challenges, autistic and ADD, and DCD, and a few other things. They both do. One is autistic, one is various challenges, not autism, and it was taking all my focus. And I knew that Long and McQuaid, I didn't have the chance to execute, my placing and like what time is it, what day is it, time and space, like it's 6 o'clock. It's because I can't focus on more than one thing at once. So I got off, and then I go, oh shoot, and I realized that it's that the place is closed, and I knew that. It's in the back of my mind because I'm too focused on paying attention to something else.
It's like it can't be summoned when it's supposed to be summoned.
When you're on the autism spectrum, it's more than just short-term memory. The short-term memory is affected, but it's often to do with executive functioning. Even behavior and emotions, and all that is affected by executive functioning. Challenges with focus and life, and managing life events and responsibilities, executive function. So what are some of the sort of examples, types of executive functioning difficulties we can think of?
Regulating emotions.
Regulation, yeah, including emotions.
I can be upset after a negative social experience for about 4 or 5 hours after. I keep perseverating. My mom, who is typically developed, will try to get me out of this loop and say, stop dwelling on it.
Yeah.
It's their problem, not yours. She'll give me all these different cues. She'll say all these different things, but I cannot lock off it. It's because I have trouble exercising, sort of inhibiting all this upheaval.
And this can overlap with trauma because of the fact that as children we were different and nobody understood why. We were treated pretty badly. We were bullied. And, you know, so I make, you know, when I'm scripting to myself and, you know, sort of fantasizing back and forth that I'm standing up to that person and, you know, whatever, I will make comic strips like that and, you know, speak about what I, you know, kind of what I would want to say and, you know, just get it out, right? Get out the toxicity, and so that's hurting me inside. But that's not just a mood thing. That can be. We're often, especially when we get missed as kids, we get misdiagnosed with like mood disorders and even personality disorders because of that difficulty with regulation. But let's get right down to sort of learning and functionality. Another thing and all these things can overlap with behavior and emotions. They all started with executive functioning. They overlap. So first of all, there's sensory issues, which could be the sensory factor itself could be an entirely new video and its own blog. But as everybody knows, one of the key features of being on the spectrum is that we hear more, we see more. I mean, everybody has a varying variations in their sensory differences. For me, my ears are really sensitive. My hearing, my ears ring too, and I can actually have a hard time discerning sounds and stuff because of that, which means like I'm a singer. I have to really ear train. So I use earmuffs in the winter, and then in the summer I use headphones, so it looks a bit less, but I mean, not that I should care, but I tend to use the headphones in the summer. I need my headphones. I'm sensitive to light as well, even though I love the sun. I need sunglasses. I'm not as sensitive to lights as some people, but fluorescent lights drive me nuts. The lights in here are pretty bright, or the lights coming from, and they bother Phillip because he's especially sensitive to lights. So we all have like differences. I'm very tactual. Tags drive me nuts. If a sock isn't straight, if I'm overheated especially, I'm very tactual. Sometimes Nelson's laughing at me because I'm I'm like straightening my sock over and over again and trying to get it on a certain way, and I'm just cursing, and I'm like cursing under my breath because I can't leave the house unless it's my sock's on perfectly straight and I'm not feeling any of the creases. We can hear white noise, right?
Yeah.
We can hear white noise in the environment. That's one of the reasons. Or we can hear, electricity almost. It's just, and it's hard to integrate each of those things, and we don't really have a filter. So if we're in a busy situation like that, we're picking up all that sensory stimuli for too long. That can cause, for me, that a lot of people with Asperger's autism end up with fibromyalgia, and one of those causes is pushing your sensory buttons for years on end without a proper diagnosis.
The brain starts to actually shut down or just stop functioning in certain aspects, and then we sort of add all these new sort of slew of physical challenges to our already developmental challenges, and we completely just can't function. It's devastating.
Yeah, our pain receptors get all mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
We genuinely also get difficulties with our actual joints in our body and all that. That's a different thing, and it's hard to know which part is sensory and which part is part of physicality.
I knew a professor with an autism spectrum condition like us, and he would always be going back to his challenges and participation when he was younger, and he would be doing martial arts classes, but he couldn't participate because the kicking and stuff, it required sort of repetitive motions, and he complained about sensitive joints, and just it was a sensitive. It bothered him so much that he was unable to do it. I was unable to swim because it would bother my joints. It would the skin. It would bother my skin. The chlorine, just all these different things. You know, it's not just
Chemical
the social
sensitivities
challenge,
too.
all of it.
So sensory is a huge piece of this. Sensory can actually cause real health issues. Like, it's just, I mean, we could get on another tangent here, but the world is generally not evolved for autistic people at this time. We're pretty much sensitive to most of the chemicals in our environment, and the inappropriate use of energy, and it's just, let's not even go there. What's another aspect? So the sensory one is huge, and that can affect our, the executive function. If the sensory issues are being pushed on, then obviously it's very unnerving to the brain, and that makes it harder to also socialize. Like if I'm in pain because of either sensory issues or just because I'm in pain, it's more difficult for me to socially perform. So when I'm flaring up with my fibro, it's because the script and social performing, I'm very good at it, but I'm very skilled at it. I had to do it for my whole life. But if my brain is taken up with a higher pain level or fatigue, then I can't do it as well. So it's a double whammy. I don't want to go out and try and perform and socialize because I'm going to seem strange. I'm not going to make the eye contact that I'm expected to in a way that it looks like I'm either lying or I'm upset or I'm spaced, or I won't act in a way that is really conducive to a conversation, and that just frustrates me more the more that I fail at that. And it's just, so thank God for the computer, Facebook, and the internet and email. But even then, sometimes if you're really feeling that awful, even comprising words for an email or a message is even too much, right? That's called shutdown. So that's part of an executive functioning thing, is shutdown, social regression, perseverating.
Withdrawal too.
Yeah, withdrawal, perseveration.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah,
you get stuck in a loop.
It's another part of executive functioning challenge. It's getting stuck in a loop on one thing. It's kind of like OCD sort of thing. It's not exactly OCD. You can jokingly say, "Oh, that's OCD," but it is when it comes down to autism, that behavior of looping and doing something over and over again and being stuck on one particular thing is called perseveration. And I have a big problem with perseveration, with certain things that as a child, when I was interested in something, I would perseverate on that one topic. You have a few things to say about perseveration?
Yeah, I just
because it's such a trigger subject for me that it's hard to find words for.
Something I find rather humorous that most people wouldn't, because it's just a very sort of, it would be like I will just laugh and I'll perseverate on it, or there will be music that
we get into laughing
stimulates
loops.
me, and I will I mean, just this afternoon, Rosie and I were laughing. We were scripting these stereotyped phrases of this friend we know.
We're not making fun of her. We're just imitating.
It's just hilarious how we repeat the phrase, and we sort of stim to that because it's like salient in our memories, and it just brings so much joy. We're not making fun of the person. It's specifically the talking style that we find so hilarious. The talking style,
because to us it's like an alien.
If anyone talked like that, it would just be absolutely friggin' hilarious.
I find it because I think it's because in order to understand people, we need to sort of make a comic strip of it. Like, if we're imitating Uncle Joe, we're like, "Hi, I'm Uncle Joe," and then Uncle Joe talks, and then we think it's really fun. We laugh at that, and we're not laughing at them. We're seeing it. In order to understand Uncle Joe and understand where he's coming from, we need to really understand his behavior and kind of make it in a cartoonish way.
Like we were, the individual was talking to us about just gluten-free options for food, and I mean, we're both really into gluten-free, like our health depends on it, but just the way that the individual said it's just the intonation was
the intonation is funny to us because it's so that the way that person would say it, you know.
It's very stereotyped. We expect it, and it starts to become rather humorous. Like, for example, here's another example.
It's autistic humor. That's a different video.
I went with a friend to Silk Road Tea, and we were there, and they were doing these tea shows, and they would use this like a little instrument called a gaiwan, and it was like a little bowl with like a lid top, and you like cover the tea and you let it simmer in it, but like instead of like a little bowl and lid, they called it like a gaiwan, like. And just, I kept repeating it to myself, and then I started to find arbitrarily it's just a neutral term, but I found it absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, just the way it sounds. People don't, your friend said, but that's not even funny, right? Like, it's not funny. To them, it's not funny.
It's just, it's very random. It's like we find people who are, I don't like the term neurotypical, but non-autistic, they tend to sort of, there's patterns with their humor. I find when you're autistic, it's all really random, and sometimes we like very sort of, not like puns, sarcasm, metaphors, all very confusing to us. Our humor patterns are completely random. I feel like sometimes autism is kind of like a synesthesia, but instead of seeing a color from a number...
I find sarcasm hilarious, but it's more like satirically over the top.
Yeah.
Then I find it really funny. And I'm satirical. I'm very satirical, and I'm very sarcastic. But I don't pick up on subtle sarcasm.
But we can be kind of random with our approach to humor. And, like, we won't really understand the humor that tends to be seen in high school or in most social situations. We'll tend to get annoyed. And it's not because we're annoyed with the people. We're not mad at the people. We're mad at ourselves. We're frustrated with ourselves because we can't always sort of click with it, because it goes back to the autism spectrum condition.
Yeah, but back to perseverating. So that was one thing, is we can perseverate sometimes on our jokes, because sometimes it's almost like if we're overloaded or overwhelmed by something else, the joke can be an escape. So all of a sudden you could be like walking, you're sensory overloaded, you could be like Gaiwan, be like walking, you're overloaded and stuff, and it's like when people, like, it happens with people with ADD as well do that. And you know how you're in the classroom and there's the way that you're so sensory overwhelmed that your teacher's like, and it's like in the movies and you're just laughing as you're looking at their mouth and their expression on their face, and they're like, you're so disorganized, and your attitude, and you're just starting to laugh, and then of course you get in trouble because it's seen as impertinent, right? But you're just
the way they come down on you is
well, yeah, either you laugh or you cry, right?
And they'll tell you, just look at me.
And then if you laugh first, they'll probably make you cry.
If they had any ability to sort of like perceive how bad they're affecting us, they probably wouldn't do it to begin with. I think they can't understand what they're, that you just do not talk to an autistic person that way, because they're not going to take it the same way.
Many times that neurotypicals, no offense to use that, but or non-autistic people, if you want to be more polite, I guess, sort of like make it an unwarranted and unfair judgment on us without sort of stepping in our shoes. It hurts it, and like the way that they treat us, and they don't understand, and I swear that if they did, they wouldn't do it, because it hurts, and they just wouldn't do it if they didn't understand how much it hurts and what it feels like,
Yeah, I feel completely disempowered. I feel like I'm paralyzed. I don't know how to reciprocate, communicate back. I don't know how to sort of serve the ball, return the serve. I break down and I freeze, and I'm paralyzed. And, it's just like my, the areas that would, subserve, ease of communication in the brain, they're less developed for us, and we have to. So instead of, it activating in response, we just get frustrated, and then executive functioning challenges come in, and we can't regulate our emotions. It's all very tricky.
So tell me more, regulating and how that relates to perseverating, because I've been told that I have a problem with perseverating, and I think that for me it's how, when trauma and bad experiences overlap with autism, then that makes for a really bad combination.
Yes.
And it can worsen the negative aspect of the autism.
It certainly can.
For me, a lot of that has to do with perseverating, and so I think it's because it is related to needing to retain control and such a fear of losing control, because whenever I didn't have complete control over something, I would be failed. So I was failed a lot as a child and not understood, so I learned how to take control of my own affairs as much as I possibly could. And so now I try and do that. When I try and do that, I can't seem to let it go, and I perseverate. And then my brain, the autistic negative aspect, so it's like an extreme of any person who would have a problem with obsessive compulsion, because they they have control issues because too many people let them down when they were young and they were hurt that way, so they learn to be very much in control, right? Mm-hmm. So like I could that could relate to me perseverating. I could perseverate over needing to sort of plan my weekly meals, and I don't have enough of this certain food yet, and I don't know if we're going to be getting, if I'm going to have enough, or I don't know something, and I'm perseverating, trying to plan out my week of meals, and when I could be letting it go for the moment because it's something I can't change and do something else, I'm going to zone in on all the details of it. Any other thoughts on perseverating more from an autistic perspective rather than just a personality perspective, emotional perspective, more of a neurological piece?
Yeah, it's I don't know, I think we have trouble taking in new stimuli, processing information. It's slow processing speed, so we sort of stick with what we're familiar with, because there's less new learning involved. When you learn
Harder
new
to
things,
shift.
When you learn new things, you have to inhibit distractions.
Yeah, and when the brain is overloaded,
multitask, and the brain's already overloaded.
It's hard to shift.
And sort of I wanted to go to more practical, Rosie, in the little bit of time we have left, because I thought when it comes to these things like dealing with the government, having to make phone calls, waiting in line, sort of balancing all these multiple things at once, having to be redirected here and here and here, there not being, concise linear process to follow, all these unexpected complications. It's really hard for us to deal with. A lot of people can handle it, but for us, it's devastating, absolutely devastating.
You know what, I just wrote a blog about, it's part of my book, Beyond the Boxes, actually. I was writing about that, how devastating it is for us to have to jump through all these hoops.
It's to the point where sometimes we just can't leave the house because we're so overstimulated. It's
funny that you mentioned that, because I was just writing about it for my book, Beyond the Boxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an important point, because even the support programs, this PSI program, for Personal Supports Initiative, mm-hmm. for autistic, Asperger's, people that are, in the not below range in IQ, so not in the developmental delay category, but in the average to above IQ level, but still with executive functioning, adaptive functioning challenges. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they're not refined enough yet in helping us navigate and feel, and most importantly, it's not just support with doing it, it's helping us minimize how many appointments we have to go to or how many things we have to attend. It's so rough on me, it's so hard on me, and I long to be free from it, because I'm a mother. And so you can imagine how, and I have health issues, so I go to doctor's appointments. You can imagine how overloaded I get.
I remember, Rose, you were saying at one point in time that generally you can only handle about 3 tasks a day. Yes. And they have to be spaced out.
3 tasks a day, and my other rule is 3 appointments a week.
Imagine an accountant or a lawyer has to handle about 50 tasks a day. They obviously have developed in such a way that affords them the capacity to, readily use, robust, executive functioning abilities. They are developmentally afforded these abilities that we are not, so they're able to enter into these professions where they can get so much work done, help so much people, and make a great salary. and sort of help regulate society, whereas we have to find our own ways. We have to, you know, be sort of start creative projects or do artistic things, because those stuff we would never really be apt for. Like, it just overwhelms the brain that struggles with executive functioning and processing.
The systems that are designed require people to work for everything you get or access or do or phone, or because they don't communicate with each other enough, and nobody knows anything. Everybody's stuck in this compartmental little sector, and we are not like that. We're fluid. We don't think we don't compartmentalize. We're fluid. Everything is one big sort of plethora of pattern, and everything moves very quickly up there in this pattern. And you know,
Yeah.
I designed a diagram, as you know, right, in my other video, where it shows how I have to translate my patterns in my head. I called it running it through the mill, to translate those patterns, and then I have to speak to myself in a script, and then I have to imagine how I'm going to execute saying those things to somebody else who's not autistic.
Yeah.
And then I have to imagine remembering all the TV shows and all the people I watched and everything, how I'm going to have to imagine scenically how I'm going to say that, how I'm going to look when I say it. I have to try my best. And since, of course, I can't imitate a facial expression quite as well as somebody who's not autistic, because I can't read them as well as somebody who's not autistic, but I can imitate them quite well, like, you know, quite well, but not enough to be completely natural. That's where I get accused of lying, because it's sort of like there's this undertone of dramatization, but that's just me. That's just how I'm executing my language and my speech. I can't help that.
And that could be them perceiving you cynically too.
Totally.
I've met a lot of people.
And it's really bad with women, because women are supposed to be more suave, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of us can be sort of androgynous, but
androgynously brained.
Yeah, it's interesting, but here's the thing. I tend to notice I have a lot of friends who are on the autism spectrum and a lot of friends who are not. I haven't noticed this in too many of my autistic friends, but in some individuals that I can't really ever become close friends with, it's a certain personality type, sort of the cynical / skeptical type of person. It's like they have sort of a scientific, maybe they like research and science and stuff, but they are very skeptical of anything, you know, spiritual related to auras. Fluid. Yeah.
It's compartmental. It's almost polar opposite to us, because they're logical too, but in a very neurotypical way.
They're very skeptical, and if you try harder to make them believe you, they will start to become cynical.
Most difficult to get those kinds of people to understand autistic people.
They won't say it, so you'll be kept guessing.
You'll feel judged, because
but you'll feel it.
Because we can't read facial expressions as well as other people. We tend to be attuned to other senses more. Especially me, I don't actually have as much of a problem with the gestures, the body stance, the voice tone. I can actually pick up, if somebody's lying, I can pick up little warbles in their voice tone. You know, just little warbles that can tell, because I can't read their face, so I'm more attuned. It's like a blind person is more attuned to other senses. So I can really pick up when people don't understand me, and it's very frustrating. So the last thing I wanted to mention, because this has been a good discussion video, is inertia. So let's define inertia. Inertia is another challenge.
I wish I could remember the individual who came up with the concept itself.
It's to do with starting?
Starting a behavior. See, inertia, it's like when something continues on its path in physics, it's inertia, so it keeps going and going and going and going. So it's like, it could be that an autistic person has trouble with inertia because they're still stuck in the same loop and can't shift away or start something new, a new task, or they just feel maybe malaise from sensory processing, or there's something that sort of stops them from starting a new behavior. But inertia is that effect where it takes forever, or it's a challenging time initiating or starting beginning a behavior, and the conceptual term for it is inertia, and has been associated most commonly with individuals with autism spectrum conditions, and sometimes with individuals with other executive functioning type challenges, such as people with an attention deficit hyperactivity pattern.
Yeah, people with ADD have a struggle, quite a struggle with inertia.
Yeah, and Rosie, in fact, both of us have been diagnosed with comorbid ADHD.
Yeah, comorbid ADD, which is
ADD.
very common with people with autism, have comorbid ADD effect. Because really, autism, it's like a continuum. ADD, ADHD, you know, and then autism, and then you have nonverbal learning difference down here. I say difference, nonverbal learning disorder is kind of part. Yeah, it's not really.
To me, autism, it's synonymous with pervasive developmental disorder, and people always ask me, they think autism is a disorder or a difference, and I came up with an answer for it eventually. When I think about autism, I think, well, maybe I best start with pervasive developmental disorder. That's the disability, that's the disorder, that's, you know, the motor control issues, that's the communication challenges, the sensory challenges, the cognitive challenges, pervasive. It sort of spreads throughout all domains of functioning, and autistic people tend to have challenges with all these different domains. When I think about autism, it's like a different side of the coin. That's really the difference, you know, the social difference, the uniqueness, the love to collect things and notice certain patterns, and sort of.
It's really all patterns in some way or another.
Yeah, to be humanistic.
Really think very fluidly and in patterns.
Yeah, I feel
two basic
right.
sort of ways that I think where our head is at initially and first.
To me, when I always think about autism, it's the difference. When I think about pervasive developmental disorder, I think about the disorders. We have to acknowledge aspects of it as disordered because the seriousness of our challenges have to be emphasized, but at the same time, we can really parcel them out. They're the same thing, but you know, we can look at the disorder, then we can also look at it as a difference. Even though it's both.
Yeah, it is both.
We want to be humanistic
Circumstantial,
here.
I say circumstantial disability a lot.
Yeah, that's very good.
Because, yeah, it's a circumstance of now. Systems are not tailored to accommodate the autistic brain wiring, so we are disabled by the fact that we can't, it's hard to function within the systems of now, the way that things are run.
I agree.
So, anyway, we hope that was a good discussion video, and that maybe provided some more insights into autism spectrum, straight from the horse's mouth, right? From Phillip and myself, who are both on the autistic spectrum and able to articulate it. Thank you, Phillip, for
welcome.
Being a guest on my channel. Love and light.